there, and welcome to The View from Abroad. I'm Teresa Norton, and I'm going to jump right into this. My guest this week is comedy teacher and complexity coach and really just generous soul and author, Belina Raffy, and she's going to be joining us from Berlin. And we are going to be unpacking a column of mine, which she chose, that was written more than a quarter of a century ago to see what still feels alive and relevant and what's changed in our world and in ourselves. Okay, so let's just listen to that column that Belina chose. Waffling on to total strangers. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts, but having spent the better part of the spring break staring at the tail end of one total stranger or another, I'd say, on the whole, it was a very rewarding couple of weeks. It all started with a call from Iris. Excitement burned down the phone line from Peng Chau, and let's face it, there's not a lot of excitement on Peng Chau. My ears pricked. They're selling air conditioners, waffle irons, and washing machines at bargain basement prices in Kwaichung, and there's a free shuttle to take us there. Well, not actually in the market for any of those items, I responded. I'm in. Where do we catch the shuttle? As fate would have it, I caught the bus before she did and arrived along with 3,527 other folks just in time to snatch my place in a queue approximately the length of the Aberdeen Tunnel, to not buy a waffle iron. No, I like lines. I like the order and sense of fairness that forming a line represents, and I appreciate the sanctity of the tacit no cutsies clause in our unwritten queuing contracts. So when Iris arrived, husband and child in tow, I waved from my place in the line between three middle-aged women and a very old lady and watched as she trudged another half-kilometer beyond me to take a position in the human python poised to strike at the mega sale of cut-price home appliances. I am my mother's daughter, and the older I get, the less uncomfortable I become with the notion that I am turning into her. Well, until I bend over to dry my toes and see that weird mommy stomach thing happening. My mother talks to strangers, and so do I. I like to think that this isn't some insincere American desire to share, but rather a hereditary condition that renders me helpless and compels me to gabble in a familiar manner to anyone with a pulse. An hour and approximately 50 paces later, one of the ladies in front of me was showing me every business card she'd ever collected with a Western name on it, and we were all pawing through the old woman's newspaper clipping to point out the bargains we had our hearts set on. I caught the fever, and that waffle iron was looking pretty good now. One of our group went on a reconnaissance mission, only to come back and report that it would be another 2 or 3 hours before we made it to the front of the queue. The woman with the business cards and I agreed it was too long for us. She worked as a janitor and had a job interview in Aberdeen at noon. I trudged back down the mega sale rumba line to tell Iris I was bailing out. This reminds me of the time I stood in line for Rolling Stones concert tickets all day long and then found out we were in the queue for people who'd already bought the tickets, she said. Yeah, except no tequila, I added. She and her husband decided to stick it out, and as I said goodbye to my new lady friends, they decided to waive the no cutsies clause and offered my place in line to Iris and her family. An impressive gesture, we agreed. Now, you might say I wasted the morning standing in line gabbling to total strangers about cut-price waffle irons I never really wanted in the first place. You might even go on and go so far as to call me an idiot. But you would be wrong. I wasn't an idiot that day. I was an idiot 5 days later when I convinced my friend Hugh to get on the shuttle bus and head back out to Kwaichung with me. I didn't make any new friends on that trip. Hugh was standing with me in the line, and being English finds my hereditary gabbling disorder too embarrassing for words. But having inched our way to the front of the queue, I can now waffle on in the privacy of my own home. So who's an idiot now? Oh, shut up and pass the syrup. Belina, how nice is it to be in practically the same time zone together at last?
I love it. Thank you so much for inviting me to play with you.
Now, I guess I could say bon dia from Portugal, but also guten Morgen to you in Berlin. Are you enjoying life there enormously? It looks like you're having a wonderful time.
Yeah, Berlin's a magical city. It really is. Lots of lights at the moment. How's Portugal? Like in terms of lights, is
Yeah, we're all lit up for Feliz Natal, as we say here, for Christmas. And it's a Catholic country, so there's a lot of celebration around this holiday. So yeah, it's wonderful. Now, I sent you 3 columns to choose from. Why did you pick? I have my own suspicions about why, but tell me, why did you choose the one we just listened to?
what all of your writing is awesome. I love it. It's delightful. And I love also that I was in Hong Kong in my semester abroad when you started this. So that for me, that's a really lovely connection. The waffles, for a few reasons, it was interesting to me when you said like your British friend kind of disavowed you, because I lived in England for 15 years, and I had like lots of opportunities to speak with random strangers, like on the like underground, and I was just about to oob on you, but it's the underground there, and there's something beautifully British too about talking to strangers, but I don't know if there's a gender divide. So one thing is I feel like we talk to strangers all the time, being facilitators, being stand-up comedy and improv and all of that stuff, and I love that. And Waffle has a connection with one of my first stand-up sets that I did, so I can tell you about that later or now.
Oh,
It's up to you.
wonderful. That's something to look forward to. Well, I have to just say that Hugh, he's very reserved, and he was just kind of confounded by the ways in which I would talk to the trees. Okay, so look, 25 years on, what's changed? Well, I'm not living in Hong Kong anymore. Iris, who I spoke to yesterday, lives in Grand Cayman.
Wow.
And Hugh is in Bath, or Bath, as we might say.
Very nice.
So everybody's relocated, and nobody in that interminable queue, as we would say in America, nobody in that line to buy those, appliances was looking at their smartphones.
Yes. Yes.
That is like a huge difference.
Yeah. And that's such a beautiful one to notice. I feel like as the AI gets better and better, the algorithms to keep us stuck to our phones is getting stronger and stronger. And I don't know if you have, like, it feels like so many of my lovely friends are being diagnosed with ADHD. And I'm
Yes.
wondering how I Googled, like, these platforms cause ADHD? And it was very interesting. The response was it doesn't cause it, but it exacerbates it. And I can't remember a time where we've been so flooded with information and urgent sounding information and information like tailored for our dopamine and stress. And so I love the simplicity and the just presence, the ability to be present
Hmm.
pre-smartphone. So yeah,
Mm.
lovely observation.
Well, yeah. I mean, I really dig what you're saying about so much distraction. So much distraction. I mean, we will never go back to the point in time where, people were just, well, some people are still doing this, I suppose, pushing a plow through a field and thinking their thoughts with nothing to distract them other than the surroundings and what goes on between their ears. But yeah, that was one thing that really stood out to me was that though the only thing anybody was carrying was that one lady, old lady with the newspaper who had all of the coupons, and we were going through, what was it? I didn't want any of that stuff, but I got caught up in the fever of this.
Yeah.
And then there was the lady with the business cards. I don't know if they still do business cards in Berlin? I know Sam tells me in Hong Kong, really, no, everybody just goes, blip, WhatsApp.
Don't
Or
you just rub your phones together like the like? Because I think it's like if you have an Apple phone, like you could just somebody did that
they
once.
have intercourse.
They do, I know, and then it's like this little wave over your screen. I'm like, I'm glad I have your details.
Yes, yeah, maybe more than I should know. Okay, so listen. All right, so those are a couple of things that are different.
Yeah.
One of the things that I talked about in the column was the fact that this talking to strangers thing is something I definitely got from my mom. I mean, she was just that was part of her nature. Your mother is a very extraordinary person. She started this museum in Baltimore and all of that. What traits do you recognize that you inherited from your mom?
I I think the talking to strangers one is definitely part of it. Also the ability to be quite global in the world, to kind of connect with people, like, Hong Kong, we met during my round the world trip, didn't we? So it was, before you, I was in Iran and Denmark and, like, and just being able to find something delightful and interesting to connect with people from all those different cultures and contexts and, importance in the news and different environmental things going on. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're also, I mean, you were making those trips solo, not, just moving to a different place, but bouncing around to a lot of different countries in a lot of different areas with completely different cultures. So I think, does some of that courage to take those kinds of risks, do you think that comes from from your mom?
I think it comes from my mom, but also from the context that I grew up in, because before I was 4, we lived in 9 different places. And then when I was 9, that also included Canada and Mexico. So I grew up talking to strangers because, you know what I mean? Like, because and from very different places and contexts. And I think that helped a lot with my improv stuff. I think that helped a lot with, okay, you know, there the patterns that, like, helped me get food in the last country were this. So where can I find those patterns in this, context?
Wow. I'm visualizing you as a, like little Belina as a pinball in a pinball machine, just flipping around, bouncing all over the place. That's a lot of travel at an
Yeah.
early stage. Are there any shortfalls that you think show up for you because you didn't have the same environment all the time growing up, or not so much?
It's a lovely question. Sometimes I think about that. The gift and the challenge is I never fit into a box. Like all the government forms or what, like so, and I'm also mildly dyslexic, but it's always difficult for me to fill out a very linear form because I can think like 5 different ways where it could be this or it could be that, but it depends. And so it's a blessing and it's a challenge, particularly when systems aren't geared up to allow for that difference or diversity.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
that
mean?
flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so here's another question for us. Fairy tales, as we grew up, were all the time telling us not to talk to strangers. I
Yes.
mean, right?
Snow White, that was my first play. I was Snow White. I was a really good fainter that, like, I could do the apple boom down on the floor, like, really well.
The Little Red Riding Hood. I mean, even those kids, like,
Yeah.
don't go and eat a stranger's gingerbread
Yeah.
house. Have you ever had a bad experience, like a scary or disturbing experience as a result of starting a conversation with a stranger?
I think as we get older, we sort of our spidey sense is sort of better of who we wanna talk to and who we don't. Like, when you're on public transport at night coming home and there's a group of, like, intoxicated people, with big muscles or whatever, and they take an interest in you, like, that's always an awkward, like,
Mm,
am I safe? All of that stuff. Touch wood, it's always been fine, but there's certain groups that just intuitively I'm like, not there, but maybe,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something. As you're mentioning this public transport, I had a very scary experience about not talking to a stranger. I mean, not talking and not making eye contact. Here's the deal. I was on the New York subway
Yeah.
to Coney Island to see Iris, actually,
Nice.
with my then husband and our 2 kids,
Yeah.
and we were going there to see a free Huey Lewis concert.
Nice.
Iris always, opened the door to wonderful adventures and things. So we're on the subway heading to Coney Island. The doors open, and this guy gets in, and he is high and vocal.
Yeah.
And I looked at him when he first got on, but then I never looked back again.
Mm.
And he got more and more and he was directing it at me, and I wouldn't
Wow.
look at him. And I wasn't looking, and it was, I mean, we were going stop after stop, and he was really zeroing in on me. And of course, my husband with these kids and everything. We got off the subway later, and it might have been in a Keith Johnstone workshop because I
Yeah.
did a few workshops with him. An improv teacher for those, a guru, kind
Yeah.
of the guy who wrote the book, right? Anyway, it might have been in one of his workshops. We're talking about status, right?
Mm.
And the idea that historically it was he who holds eye contact the longest
Mm.
has the highest status if you look away first. But actually, what they found now is that if you look away and you don't look back,
Yeah.
you have erased that person.
Right.
And that's what happened with that guy.
Yeah. That's why he was going nuts.
That's
Yeah.
why he was going nuts with me. It was like, look
Yeah.
at me, lady. And I wouldn't look at him. I wasn't doing it intentionally to piss him off,
Right. Right. Yeah.
but the result of all that was
Yeah.
like, yeah. So that's an example of, and you also said something about, spotting your spidey sense.
This has become a public safety podcast, but like I do when at night walking back through the park and stuff to my place, I make sure I don't have headphones or anything so that I can be aware. And
Yeah.
and so far, it's I love this neighborhood and stuff like that, but stuff every once in a while happens. And I feel like that's important to just be like,
Super important. Great.
yeah,
I was doing a radio show in Hawaii, and they gave me a free rein to do a lot of crazy stuff. And then eventually they said, all right, bring it in, girl. And so they said, we're going to give you a talk show. We're going to get some guests
nice.
in there that are actual humans instead of the crazy things that come out of your mind. So I had this guest on, and he was talking about women's safety. This was back in the 80s, early 80s. One of the things he said is, if you're on a dark street, walk in the middle of the street. Don't walk on the sidewalk near the alleyways. You feel like, oh my God, I'm walking down the middle of the street. People are going to think I'm crazy. Much lower chance of somebody grabbing you from the middle of the street than
Yes.
an alleyway. And when I was living in Cincinnati, I thought it was a lot closer to New York. I was obviously in the bathroom smoking a cigarette when they were teaching geography. So I was in Cincinnati for a year. And when I
Yeah.
was there, I lived downtown in a women's residence hotel. And there were some murders or something happening in the area. And we were all talking about strategies. And what I decided I would do is I would bark like a dog.
Right.
And so that's what I did. I was walking home from the Greyhound bus station, and I heard some footsteps behind me, and I kind of glanced, and it was a guy. And I just, as I was walking along, and the
Yeah.
guy moved to the other side of the street.
Yeah.
He eventually got in front of me, and he looked very much like maybe my dad just walking home from work with a briefcase. But that was my,
Yeah.
as you say, public safety. I mean, kids don't try this at home. Who knows what your experience of
Well, I
barking.
was just thinking, like, like we're walking in the middle of the street to be safe, and then like we get hit by a car. Be careful on many realms. But,
Yeah, don't listen to me. I'm the last person you want to get safety
Yeah,
information.
but you're still here. Like,
Well, that's true, but the
you're still
miracles
here.
do
Yeah.
happen. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the final question I've got here is, the digital age has got us talking to strangers, and in some cases, like this podcast, we share a lot about ourselves with
Yeah.
people that we don't know who's listening.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Have I planted a horrible seed in your mind now and you want to get off the show?
I mean, luckily, I'm not that famous. You mean so? Like for the comedy class that I teach, some of those sets are on YouTube. I had some light trolling because somebody mentioned feminism, but I think it was actually probably a bot. Like I sat with it like, should I try to educate the person? Like enlighten them? And then we're going like, no, just delete the comment. It's fine.
Yeah.
So luckily that's kind of as intense as it's gotten, and I prefer that with the universe. Like I'd like to, because it can be really scary. I work with friends who look at human rights, work in human rights and stuff like that. And some of them have been doxxed. So like all of their personal information, where they live, who their kids are and stuff has gone out there. And people have said mean and scary things that they're going to do. And that's horrific. I really feel like it goes both ways is that, like, a stranger can say something really lovely too, and really, like, and kindness, and I do the type of work in the world, I think you do too, that invites kindness and compassion and stuff like that, so that, like, I'm happy for those ways. Do you know, and
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not even about being famous. I'm not who the hell knows who I am. But what I'm saying is just that the world we live in now that has us so connected with Facebook and stuff like that. If you're not very careful about your protocols, friends of friends and people that you don't know are seeing a lot of personal stuff about you. And I've had the benefit of being able to reconnect with people that I like, a guy that I knew in the 4th grade.
nice.
Doug and I are, reconnected after all these years and many miles. But everything's got this up and down side to it. And I guess that's just the way life is. And
Mm.
if you listen to The Rest is History, another fabulous, I mean, that's a really fabulous podcast. If you listen to The Rest is History and you understand a little bit more about the ups and downs of living in different times, you recognize that there is nothing new under the sun. No matter what gets invented and what new thing gets introduced, there's always going to be an upside and a downside,
Yeah.
right?
I think what's new for people who have stuff to say, and I love the idea. Like, your podcast is just awesome. I love what you're doing with it. I love the structure of it. Like, for people, what's new for us with kind hearts is that nastiness can be automated and really designed to be invasive and really messy. And I think that's new. Like, it's the scale of it. Monica Lewinsky talked. She was like the patient zero of all of that. Like, what do you do when you get a bunch of nastiness?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's new. It's also like the other way where what was it? Like, the lady who became a sensation of, like, Chewbacca Mama.
Gal who won the singing contest who looked like,
Yeah. Some Booth.
somebody's
Somebody Booth, wasn't it?
auntie
Yeah.
living in a very
Spoiled.
unglamorous outfit. And then she opened her mouth and everybody was stunned. I guess, the only thing I would say about all this is yes. And, well, they used to burn witches,
Yeah, yeah,
so there's always been danger.
yeah.
There's always been something. I guess the key to it is to keep looking for what's good in what's offered, right? Where's something that you can do something positive with it? Hey, listen, I'm singing from your choir sheet, girl. Let's take a break. And I know that you worked with agronomists, am I saying that right, in Central America, space scientists in Europe and the US, human rights lawyers in Eastern Europe, and middle management consultants in India. But there's a new workshop that you're offering that people can sign up for right now. And we want to hear more about that after this. Talk to me about complexity, compassion, and comedy, Belina Raffy.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We've both known each other through the Applied Improv Network. We both have worked with applied improvisation, and I think Kat Koppett talked about improv as like the gym for life. I think that's how she said it. And for me, it's actually the gym for complexity. All of the practices of improv are so good for when you can't, like in school, we're taught like, you do A and B happen. Like, it's very linear. And then you get into the world and it's sort of like, wow, this is way more complex. So this course that I'm teaching is you bring a wicked issue that's like driving you crazy. A wicked issue just means complex and you've like tried a bunch of ways to solve it and it keeps popping back in your face.
Mm.
And you bring that, and once a week for 4 weeks, I give you the skills of complexity coming from human systems dynamics.
Which you're certified in this,
I
right?
am.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I'm a professional practitioner. Glenda Young, who's been doing this for 35 years in organizations, I feel like she's my long lost sister. She's like a lot of the improv stuff that I was doing intuitively. She has like these beautiful tools for. So that felt really nice and natural to do this thing. Um, I also bring a lot of the insights from the comedy course that I've been teaching for 10 years, and it's a compassionate comedy course. And I've been teaching this with, people in climate and people, human rights lawyers and all these different, and there's something very interesting about comedy and patterns that helps us work through complex issues. And then compassion. So I've been hanging out with people who have really studied ancient Tibetan Buddhism and compassion practices. So I bring a few tools from that realm as well, and we weave them all together, over a month to see what new things can you see, what new possibilities can you see in the particular thing that you bring, the complex issue, but also like you can apply it to everything else. So
Take these tools and spread them around in other
yeah.
parts of your life. How wonderful. So if people want to sign up for this course, it's being offered in January. Is that right?
It is, and the next sort of set will probably be in March, and the prices are going up. So if you wanted like a good deal, like now is the time to jump on the January ones. There's one
Get in
starting.
that queue. And it's not like as long as the Aberdeen Tunnel. You can hop to the front of the queue. Cutsies are okay. You just need to www.gigglingwithearth.com is where you want to go. GIGGLINGWITHEARTH.com and click on workshops. I will restate the website that you should go to towards the end of the program so that you can sign up and join that as you head into the new year. But right now it's time for us to hand the storytelling stick over to Belina to see if there was some memory that was prompted by something in that column, an idea, a word, a situation. So Belina, over to you.
Thank you. Your column is fabulous. And I love the observation that when you go to places alone, you talk to strangers like that's. And so one of the places that I love to go alone is the Frontline Club in London. It's the Independent Journalists Club. I used to go to the back, get a glass of wine, come and sit down and just chat with independent journalists, filmmakers, everything. And there was this one particular event that I went to in 2011 that was a screening of something. It was the film was called Up in Smoke. It's not the Cheech and Chong film, but this was the documentary.
Right.
And the documentary just had an extraordinary response to slash and burn farming to shift those farmers to organic agroforestry. And it was just stunning. And on stage at the Frontline Club was the film director, Adam, and then Michael Hans, who had created this whole system. And I was so blown away. I raised my hand. I got to ask the first question, and it was, how can I help you? And I meant it with all my heart. And we exchanged business cards, and I thought, I'd love to help, but I don't know how. And then a few months later, I'm at a marketing excellence workshop that I'm running. And one of the guys who's the founder of Innocent Drinks, which eventually was bought up by Coca-Cola, but doing really lovely stuff in the world and playful. I told them about the Inga Foundation, and they said, "Oh, that sounds great." I connected them with Michael, and they ended up funding his chief agronomist for several years, which was brilliant. So that was like a lovely, oh, okay, I guess I've done the assignment that the universe gave me for speaking to a stranger. And it didn't stop there. And then in the pandemic, so jumping ahead, once every few years, I connected with one of these two guys.
Yeah.
In the pandemic, I reached out to Michael because I kept looking at the Inga Foundation thinking, oh my God, it's amazing work, and telling everybody about it.
What is the name of the foundation?
It's called the Inga Foundation. So ingafoundation.org. Okay. And they have shifted now over 600 families in Honduras from slash and burn farming in the rainforest to organic agroforestry.
Wow.
And they lift people out of poverty. So I say, look, I'm doing this thing called Giggling with the SDGs. Will you come and play with me and share your wisdom about a specific sustainable development goal? And he said, yeah. And then what happened during the pandemic is we started talking more off the back of that. And now he's my lovely partner, and he's been my lovely partner for 5 years now. So it's worth it to talk to strangers. Sometimes that is the universe's way, even if it's a slow burn, because 2011 to 2020, to bring you together, to bring the love of your life to you.
we say ignore those fairy tales. Do talk to strangers. Again, don't take, safety advice from me. I'm the last person. That's a lovely story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so happy for you both. What a wonderful, wonderful way to be brought together and doing such good work, which you do, my dear. www.gigglingwithearth.com. Click on workshops and sign up pronto, because the price will go up after January, and it's a great way to start the new year. Look, if you're enjoying this podcast, please comment and rate it on whatever platform you're listening to. And if you're not feeling happy about the Happy New Year, that's okay too. It's not always an easy transition from one year to another, and people can get the blues at this time of year. Reach out to a friend or a stranger at a support center, but breathe all the time and come up slowly. And if you're worried about what 2026 has in store, well, what if it's good?